Hello my friend and welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney and I am a flower preservation artist and business coach here to teach you all the tips and tricks about running a flower preservation business. I received an email from one of my course students explaining that she was in the middle of pouring a piece and she woke up to this yellow streaking in the piece and she couldn't understand what had happened and questioned how she could remedy it. If you're interested in learning more about this, then stay tuned. So color bleeding is not something that happens often, but it can be a terrible issue when it does. There's usually two reasons for color bleeding, either painted or colored flowers and then pollen. So here's a few examples of color bleeding so that you can see what I'm talking about if you are fortunate enough to have not yet had this happen. All right, so here is the photo that my course student sent me. You can see at the top of the piece where there is some yellow in there, and it kind of looks like there might have been a little bit on the left-hand side as well. Just looking at this and knowing what I know, my first instinct was that there was probably pollen somewhere. So that's more than likely what happened, and at this point it had already cured, so there wasn't any way to take it out. So essentially she decided to just go ahead and put some flowers over the top of it to kind of hide it a little bit, and this is how it turned out. Pretty good, huh? Now, here's the best part about color bleeding. Sometimes you'll have no idea that it will happen. I know, when I said best part, that was sarcasm. It's actually quite terrible. Now, there's obvious times when you know a flower is painted and the possibility of color bleeding is imminent, but I've had some flowers come in that had such a good paint job, I had no idea they were painted until I put them in resin, and then I found out. Like, who paints a blue thistle the same color blue? It's already blue. But yeah, I've had that happen. So how can you tell if the flower is painted? Well, there's the obvious. Is it a natural color? Blue is pretty rare, so if something is blue that we know isn't naturally blue, then it's probably either dyed or painted. Same thing with black. There's only like a handful of flowers that are actually black. But I've also seen florists spray paint pink flowers to be yellow and white flowers to be pink. So, I mean, how do we know? First, you're going to check the base of the flower. Most bouquets are prepared at least 24 hours in advance, sometimes 48, and then you won't get them for another 24 to 48 hours after that. So it's a good 3 to 4 or 5 days after, right? So guess what? Flowers still grow in that time frame, and if you look at the petals under the bottom where the base is, if it's painted, you'll see the line of where the paint ends and the natural flower continues from the bud of the flower. You can also look at the greenery attached to the flower. Does it look painted? Like, can you tell, like, the light shade of paint on there? You can kind of see the shimmer. That's a good way to know. You can also go a step further and pull a petal off the flower and put it in a bowl of water. You'll start to see the paint run off after a bit if that's the case. So that's kind of what we look for. Now, the other type of color bleeding that can come from flower itself is the pollen. Probably the most common flowers we have this issue with is lisianthus. You can also have this issue with lilies. So when we process these flowers, we usually cut the stamen off completely so that we don't have that pollen problem. But with lisianthus, sometimes you can't always do that because maybe the flower hasn't opened enough. So some things that we do in order to avoid that are, one, you could use UV resin to fill the middle of the flower in case the pollen is still in there before placing it in the mold. I don't personally do this because I think it's a little bit too much work, but usually what we do is we'll position the lisianthus so that it faces up instead of laying on its side. That way you can fill resin in the mold, and it just stays in the petals. That way it doesn't like flow out there. It keeps it, the petals act as a barrier. Your other option is to spray it before placing it in the mold, using like a sealer spray. This is what we do, and it's much easier, I think. I know Krylon has a brand and Hobby Lobby has a brand. I'll put them in the description below if you want to look for one, but that's mostly what we do. So how we do that is when we're taking the flowers out of silica gel, we usually have notes that they're painted on there before we put them in. So we'll take those specific flowers out and spray them to seal them for 24 hours. And this pretty much works pretty perfectly. Every once in a while, there's a few times that maybe it doesn't, but like I said, sometimes you just don't know. Some extra precautions you could do is you could flood the flower before it cures and then place it in the mold. Just there's a few things you can do. It's up to you what you want to do, but I do also have this in my contract, just so that clients understand that it is kind of unpreventable sometimes, so there's a little bit of wiggle room if there's an issue. At least they know ahead of time. Now, if you do have some bleeding happen in a piece that you've already started pouring, if the resin is still wet, you can obviously scoop it out as best you can. Use a small cup or maybe a pipette to kind of suck it out. You can also add additional flowers to cover it up. I've done that several times. I know it can be disheartening when this happens, but remember, this is art and it's not perfect, and you can't prevent every bad thing from happening. Just keep calm and determine the best course of action and continue with the piece. I can also say that I've never had a client complain about the issue. If I know the flowers are painted, I'll go ahead and explain that to them when they drop off so they're not as surprised when it happens. But like I said, communication is key. So contract, talking to them, things like that. I do hope this information was helpful and that it will give you more confidence should this issue arise in the future for you. If you liked this video, hit that like button, and while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe button too so that you'll be notified of our next video. And if there's ever a specific topic or part of the process that you would like to learn more about, let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make videos to answer your questions. I hope you have a great day and a blessed week. Bye now.